Imagine this. You are standing in a vast, silent valley in East Africa, 100,000 years ago. You are insignificant. You are not the fastest, the strongest, or the most durable creature on the plains. You are a minor character in a drama, dominated by massive lions, packs of wolves, and towering mammoths. You are a sapiens, and you are just an animal, scavenging on the edges, living in a perpetual state of fear, clinging to survival. You have no power, no significance, and no reason to believe your species will last another millennium. Now, Link, you are sitting in a climate-controlled room, holding a device that gives you access to the sum total of your species' knowledge. You have walked on the moon, split the atom, and reshaped the very biology of life. You are not just surviving, you are a god. You are deciding the fate of every other creature on the planet. How did the insignificant scavenger become the master of the world? This is the central paradox that Yuval Noah Harari drops like a bomb in the first pages of Sapiens. It is the greatest unsolved mystery of our existence. The standard story tells us we are smarter, better, or simply destined for greatness. But Harari suggests something far more unsettling. Our ascent was not an inevitability. For tens of thousands of years, we were nothing. There were at least 6 distinct human species on Earth at the same time: robust Neanderthals in Europe, upright Homo erectus in Asia, creatures with brains just as large, bodies just as strong. We, Homo sapiens, were the underdogs, the scared prey hiding in the brush. So, what was the secret weapon that flipped the script? What allowed this one fragile species to break the laws of biology and rewrite the rules of reality? Harari argues it wasn't fire, and it wasn't tools. It was a cognitive revolution so strange, so powerful, that it didn't just change how we lived, it changed our ability to process truth. And that twist, the difference between objective reality and the stories we tell, is the locked door at the back of your mind that this book is about to pry open. If this mind-bending perspective on humanity's rise resonates with you, hit that subscribe button now. We dive into books like this every week to help you see reality more clearly. Listen closely, because the answer to our rise is not what you think. It wasn't our hands, our tools, or even our individual brains that set us apart. Neanderthals had bigger brains. They had fire, tools, and even buried their dead with ritual. They were, by every biological measure, our equals or superiors. Yet they vanished, and we endured. Why? Yuval Noah Harari diagnoses the root cause of our dominion with a single electrifying concept: the cognitive revolution. Roughly 70,000 years ago, something happened inside the sapiens' brain. A random genetic mutation, perhaps a minor tweak in neural wiring, allowed us to think in ways no other creature ever had. It wasn't just intelligence. It was the ability to speak about things that do not exist at all. Other animals can communicate. A monkey can scream. Look out, a lion. That's real, tangible information. But as sapiens, armed with this new language, could sit by the fire and say, "The lion is the guardian spirit of our tribe." No other animal on Earth can discuss a fiction. This is the hidden engine of our history. This ability to weave shared myths, gods, nations, laws, money, corporations, became the invisible glue binding millions of strangers together. Lions hunt in prides because they know each other intimately, but thousands of sapiens who had never met could suddenly cooperate toward a common goal if they all believed the same story. A priest in one city and a merchant in another could unite under a shared god. A peasant and a king could submit to the same law. The problem Harari exposes is that we forgot these stories were fictions. We began worshiping the myths we created. We now live inside a web of shared narratives so deeply embedded that we mistake them for the laws of nature. You felt this tension, the weight of money, the pull of nationalism, the judgment of laws, all of them real in their consequences, yet none of them existing outside the stories we collectively tell. This single mutation, this gift for fiction, didn't just help us cooperate. It unleashed a force that would reshape the entire planet. But here is the chilling consequence Harari forces you to confront. The stories that united us also trapped us. Consider the agricultural revolution, which Harari calls history's biggest fraud. For 2.5 million years, our ancestors lived as hunter-gatherers, roaming diverse landscapes, eating dozens of species, working fewer hours, and suffering less famine than their farming descendants. Then, roughly 12,000 years ago, we told ourselves a new story. Why wander for food when we can control it? Settle down. Own the land. Dominate the wheat. But who really domesticated whom? Harari poses this devastating question. Wheat was an insignificant grass that thrived only in specific niches. Within a few thousand years of the agricultural story taking hold, this fragile plant covered the globe. It forced the sapiens who worshipped it to abandon their varied lives, huddle in permanent villages, stoop over fields until their spines curved, and live on a single famine-prone crop. Wheat didn't need us, we needed it. The story of owning the land became us being owned by it. This pattern repeats through every chapter of our history. Hierarchies, kingdoms, empires, all built on shared myths. You've inherited these stories. You wake to an alarm clock, a fiction called time that organizes everyone's behavior. You work for money, perhaps the most powerful fiction ever created, a system of mutual trust in pieces of paper and digital numbers that have no inherent value. You pledge allegiance to a nation, an imagined community of millions you will never meet. The unseen consequence is this. We now live inside a prison of our own making, walls built entirely from stories we forgot we imagined. Our power came from collective belief, but that same belief now dictates how we live, work, love, and die. The myths that saved us have become the cages that confine us. If you want more videos that shatter your assumptions and rebuild your understanding of the world, smash that like button and comment Sapiens below. I read every comment and your engagement keeps this channel alive. So how do we break free? How do we see the bars of a cage made of stories? Harari's prescription is not to abandon myth. That's impossible. Humans cannot function without large-scale shared fictions. Instead, he offers something far more radical, the conscious recognition that we are the storytellers. The path to resolution lies in understanding the third great revolution, the scientific revolution. For most of history, humans assumed all important knowledge was already known, contained in ancient scriptures or traditions. If something contradicted the holy book or the elders' wisdom, it was simply wrong. This kept us trapped in our inherited myths. But roughly 500 years ago, we admitted ignorance. We confessed, we don't know. And from that confession, we gained the power to discover. This was the true rupture. Science didn't just give us technology. It gave us permission to question the stories themselves. Suddenly, empires weren't divine rights. They were political fictions. Money wasn't wealth. It was collective trust. Nations weren't eternal. They were imagined communities born from war and propaganda. Harari's framework for freedom is simple yet terrifying. Examine the stories you live by. The corporation you work for, a legal fiction. The borders that define your country, lines on a map no other animal recognizes. Your career ambitions, scripts written by cultural narratives about success. When you see them as stories, you regain the power to edit them. The author offers no comfort here. He doesn't promise you'll find an objective truth beneath the myths. He suggests there may be none. The universe is indifferent to our dramas, but in recognizing our role as the species that creates meaning, we stop being slaves to the meanings we inherited. We become conscious authors of our own lives. We stop living inside the story and start holding the pen. And this brings us to the final, most haunting revelation Harari leaves echoing in the silence after you turn the last page. If our power is our ability to create shared fictions, and our freedom is recognizing them as such, then what happens now that we stand at the edge of a new revolution. Harari stares into the future and sees a species about to rewrite the oldest story of all, the story of what it means to be human. We are no longer content to reshape the world outside us. We are now turning our myths inward, preparing to upgrade Sapiens itself. Genetic engineering, cyborg technology, artificial intelligence, these are not just tools. They are the tools to change the toolmaker. The cognitive revolution gave us fiction. The agricultural revolution trapped us in it. The scientific revolution let us question it. But the next revolution, the one happening in labs right now, may allow us to escape the limits of this species entirely. We are the last generation of natural humans. Our successors, whether bioengineered or digital, will look back at us the way we look back at the Neanderthals, as a curious footnote, an evolutionary stepping stone. So here is Harari's ultimate challenge. Look at your hand. The hand that once clutched a spear on the African savanna. The hand that later gripped a plow, then signed a contract and swiped a screen. That hand is the same, but the mind controlling it now imagines a future where that hand may belong to something post-human. Are you ready to let go of the story of you? Because that is the final question the book leaves you with. Not where we came from, but where we are going. And whether the myths we create tomorrow will liberate us, make us work for them, or simply replace us. The history of Sapiens is over. The next chapter has no title, and the pen is in our hands. What story will you write?